Awesome. Awesome. Edit all this.
I'll just tell where to find it and everything too, and the name of it, because I want to make sure I'm following this one.
Yes, of course. Hello, and thank you guys for being here today with Nicole, which means to prevail, to conquer, to overcome. And we have a young lady today who will introduce herself, but she is prevailing. Oh my gosh. She has become very busy, very busy. And so I wanted to get her before she really takes off. And she has overcome. And today we're going to be talking about trauma. And so she has been known to overcome some trauma. And we're going to talk to her a little bit. Introduce yourself to the people.
And so well, first off, to God be the glory of everything that you have said. I mean, all the praises, I appreciate them, but I couldn't do anything that I do without God being in my corner and opening those doors and opportunities for me. So my name is Bri Andrews, and I'm a trauma and mental wellness advocate and speaker, youth advocate. And so, yeah.
Awesome. So I don't think I have these questions in any order, so get ready. Or I may not. These headphones. So first, do you mind sharing your trauma?
Yes, absolutely. So that's what I do. I like to go to community events and podcasts and anywhere people have me to be able to share my story, because sharing your story, it doesn't only bring more healing and restoration to you, it can bring healing to other people in the midst of their trauma and their situations as well. So for me, in my story, there was a time where I didn't feel worth living. I come from a childhood of blind rage, episodic physical abuse. That would be stemming from my father's personal battle with mental health, adverse effects of alcohol, military-induced PTSD, and his own childhood trauma. So at an early age, I began to feel the weight of the responsibility on my shoulders to step up and be the protector of my younger siblings. I would always fight to protect them against his episodes of violence, always blindly, never knowing what would happen or if I'd survive through it. So that's something that always kept me going, is protecting my siblings. I'm one of 5 kids. My eldest sister had already moved out and was living with an abusive boyfriend at the time. My second eldest sister ended up running away after one of my dad's episodes, left bruises on her arms. She just basically said that she wasn't going to stay through it, and so she took off. And so that left me with just my 2 younger siblings. And most days, to put it quite plainly, wanted to unalive myself, because I wanted to find a way to escape. I didn't know how to escape what was going on in my household. I wasn't allowed to speak about it because, many other families of color will know what's done in this house stays in this house.
Exactly.
So you weren't supposed to speak about it. You weren't supposed to tell anyone. And, you're just basically trying to fight through the current reality in which we're living in. So I kept fighting back each day, even through my suicidal thoughts. I was just, tired of not having control over my situation. So I ended up self-harming with an eating disorder. And that's really what kind of led me then into, trying to find my safety in relationships with boys as a way to cope. Coping with the eating disorder as a way to control something, in my life. But I would soon find out I didn't have any control over those situations, any control over that eating disorder. And I was leading myself into a lot of additional trauma that I didn't need to have from those relationships.
Wow. So I'm sure you've had counseling for this particular
Yes, absolutely. So I saw my dad go through counseling first. My dad was going through counseling. He did AA. He did, all the groups, but I never really trusted their effectiveness because of the fact that he would come home the same exact way. But when I was about 13 years old, my dad had his worst episode yet that I could remember. I just remember being in the car, and without going through all of the, traumatic details, like, I just remember being in the car, my head and neck was being pushed over the headboard behind the seat. And the last thing I remember was looking at him in his eyes being black, and him just yelling in my ear that he was going to kill me. And in that moment, something in my body was just like, just give up.
Wow.
Just stop fighting. And what's the worst that could happen? You achieve some level of peace. So I literally just felt my body basically give up. And when I woke up, I was somehow on the couch, and he was sitting on the other side of the couch crying. This was literally the second time I had ever seen my dad cry in my life. The very first time was when he had started riding motorcycles, and my little sister, she had a lot of emotional issues with him due to all of the abuse, and she had actually made the statement of, I hope he fall off. And that was the first time I had ever seen him cry. You could tell that it affected him, just something as quick as her saying, I hope you fall off that motorcycle, because he could feel within himself, like, his spirit man was fighting the fact that he felt like he was failing as a father, but he didn't know how to stop it. He didn't know how to control it. And so I think he felt that pain. But once I saw him crying on the couch, when I came to, in that moment, he had actually made a promise to me that he would never put his hands on me again. There was a lot of words that were said, and a lot of, like, I don't know why this is happening to me, but I will never put my hands on you again. And the next thing I knew, we were being thrown into individual counseling, family trauma counseling, Celebrate Recovery, and the Landing, which is like a youth version of Celebrate Recovery. And I saw my dad applying Celebrate Recovery to his life in a very in-depth way, to the point that he was doing like self-inventory step studies. He had a book for each step that he was working. And I would really try to like challenge him during that time, because I was no longer afraid of him. Now I was trying to test him to see if his promise would basically hold up. And so because of that, I started being a little bit more, disrespectful, like having an attitude, kind of fighting back with him, because I was testing him to see if he would relapse. He never relapsed on me. He actually kept his promise to me. So I could see how Celebrate Recovery had, begun to affect him. And then being a part of it myself and being a part of the Landing, I saw how it affected me. I really feel like the Landing, that youth version of Celebrate Recovery, it saved my life, because I would have never been able to look at him the same way again had I not gone through that.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible. Now, okay. I think you may have just touched on it just a little bit, but I want you to go into, how did this affect who you are now, and in what way has it affected you?
So 100%, this experience has affected me in every way. The good qualities about me, the bad qualities about me, they definitely all stem from this experience. I know I personally struggled with losing my first love due to this situation. I lost my first love of dance. I went to semi-professional ballet school. I had a track. I had specific plans, and I was putting myself in position to make those plans occur. And I went, I was going to a semi-professional ballet private school. I went to school there. I did ballet there. I did everything there because I was putting myself on a track to achieve as a professional dancer. But with that eating disorder, I allowed it to basically take control over my life. And because of that, I had to quit ballet and I quit that school. I did eventually end up finding my way back towards dance, but just not in the same way. I also noticed how it impacted relationships. I struggled in relationships so much because of so much heartbreak finding me. It also led me into trying to find safety in relationships or finding a guy who I felt like could protect me from my father. And that, led me to being pregnant in high school. I found out I was pregnant my senior year of high school. And the craziest thing is I knew I was broken then because the main reason why I decided to keep my baby was because I was like, finally, a person who would love me unconditionally. And, that's how I knew there's that brokenness within me, because I'm like, I'm looking to this baby to like save me, to give me all the love that I didn't have. And I would then find out, he was actually going to be very pivotal in my healing journey as well. But as far as the good things that I got from that experience and from that trauma, it made me very resilient. I know who I am. I think everything through. It made me a lot stronger. I'm definitely a fighter because I've been fighting my whole life. And I know how to use my voice now because I spent my whole childhood being forced to silence. So because of that, I now use my voice and teach others, especially girls and women, to use their voice.
Awesome. Awesome. So you obviously shared this information with your family and your friends. So one thing that is not on here, so how did,
Some of them,
yes,
only some of them.
okay, how did they respond? How did the son respond?
Yeah. I remember when I first told my grandma, who was actually his mom. So she broke down in tears because she felt so hopeless at the fact that she never knew what was going on. She said that she wished that we would have been able to trust in her to tell her, but I had just had to reassure her, like, this isn't something that I was telling anyone. So it wasn't about, necessarily trusting her. It's just not something, we just knew not to do it. And so I could tell how it affected her. I had to have a conversation with my mom too about it, because her and I had a lot of struggles throughout my teen years because of it. We would always be, going back and forth. And it was really because of the fact that I was so angry at her for staying. But and this is where God began to really start showing me the reason behind everything that had occurred. And she actually, we left so many times. They would split up, they would separate, we would leave, we would stay with this family member, that family member. And I don't know what she would tell them for the reasons as to why, but we would always find our way back, and they would always find their way back together. And she told me that God told her that if she trusted him, that he would be able to bring glory and victory to the situation. Wow. And everything that was ugly, he would make beautiful. That she just needed to wait on him and trust in him, and that this was his way of working on the whole family at the same time.
Wow.
I'm sure she had a lot of arguments back and forth with God.
She did.
I'm sure she.
What kind of yes. What are you talking about?
I'm sure she fought with God on that.
Yeah.
Tirelessly. but I didn't see that side of it until we had that conversation. And that really helped me see things in a different light. And I can see that now with everything that's, happening in my life. I can see just how God has taken this situation and turned it into something beautiful that he can use as breakthrough for his people.
Wow.
So, but then the last thing I would say about that is I was always kind of fighting this feeling of not being fully seen with that situation, even with my dad. But I was speaking at an event, and this was actually, I think, last year. I was speaking at an event and I was sharing my story. And up to this point, I had always used the term, I always said he. I never said my dad. I never would put my dad in my story. I would always say he or his trauma or his struggles or his whatever, because I never wanted anyone to look at my dad in a negative light because of the fact that we have come so far from that. I'm telling something that has happened previously. So I never wanted, him to be looked at in that way. And at this event, I did that same thing. I said he, him, that kind of thing. And he was in the audience. And he ended up standing up in front of everyone and raising his hand and saying, I am he. I am the man that abused my children.
Wow.
And, I am not that man that I was before. God has restored me. And it was just wild to me because even him saying the word abuse, it brought so much additional healing to me that I didn't even know that I needed, because I had already forgiven him. But there was something about the fact he had never said the word abuse or called it abuse up until that point, and it added such an additional layer of healing. Plus it shifted the atmosphere of the entire event, because they were just like, oh my gosh, like it was crazy. So that was a really big breakthrough moment for me.
Wow.
The communication piece through your trauma is just so important, because you'll be thinking that you're healed and you've forgiven them, and then something else comes up, you speak about it again, you're like, oh my gosh, I needed that again. Or sometimes even I'll think about it and at times and get a little bit emotional and being like, why are you doing that? Like, you're way past this. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, it just added that additional extra healing that I needed. So
that took guts for him to do that.
Yeah.
So that is wow. Yeah, that definitely shows his growth, and his overcoming.
Yeah.
Also, and prevailing over those demons, that have hold of him. Because I would definitely look at that like, that's demonic. Who would want to hurt?
Yeah.
And to hurt your future, you guys' future, what you're doing now, or what the path that you're on now, for other people that are connected to you, so it's so awesome. It's so awesome. Because a lot of times we think is, oh, the enemy doesn't like me. He doesn't, but it's like not just us, it's who you can reach. That if he can break you, you won't get to them.
Yeah.
So it's so wonderful, so wonderful. So I know that you've used your story, as you said, to help other people. And now, how do you feel about your dad now?
I have done, so much counseling, self-inventory, step studies, prayer, all in an effort to forgive my dad. And that has helped tremendously in forgiving him. But what really helped the most is I also took the time to learn his story, his background, his why, the root of the trauma from his childhood, and the root of his suppressed anger. When I was able to hear his story and learn his story, it gave me a whole new perspective on him. It gave me a whole new understanding on the why he does this, or the why he may have said this, or why he used to think like this. Like it added that clarity for me. And this helped me not only to forgive my dad, but it helped me be able to separate the mental illness from my dad. So when I see my dad, I don't see that abuse anymore. I see that abuse as mental illness that he used to struggle with or that used to consume him. But it used to have control over him, but God set him free from that. And so when I was able to separate the two, it didn't connect to him anymore. And God has restored that relationship. He's given healing, given so much forgiveness. And now my dad is a pastor and a counselor himself. So look how that just comes around. Full circle.
God, that is incredible. That is incredible. Oh, that's wonderful. That's so wonderful. So, I mean, the next question was you forgiven him, you already forgave them, you know, you've already stated what helped you move past your anger or your hurt and the 5 stages of grief, past acceptance.
Yeah, I kind of went through that a little bit when I was answering that question, because I was thinking, I'm like, I pretty much started at sadness and anger, but over time that anger became struggling to find meaning and purpose in my life. And then when I, purpose outside of feeling like just being someone's punching bag. And when I felt like I couldn't find that purpose, that eventually turned into deep depression. And then I remained in that state of deep depression because, for many years with spurts of anger along the way, because I actually added to my trauma through that traumatic situation, because I didn't heal from that trauma right away. I then went and had a baby and then went right into additional years of trauma. So then it was like I added more trauma onto my life and to myself, because then I'm getting with this guy who we only got together because we trauma bonded over the same childhood situation.
Oh, that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like, yes, you're the one. You can protect me. You did this, you did that. You've already faced the same stuff. So we're good. And then, we have a kid together. A month into my son being born, he was kicking me out of the house, and I was having to figure everything out from scratch with a newborn baby. And, that situation began just going in and out of my life like a revolving door. After that first month when he kicked me out and I had to find a place on my own, I didn't hear from him for 6 months after that. There was zero contact. So I just had this newborn baby. I'm still dealing with my childhood trauma, trying to work on it. I'm not sleeping. I've got a newborn baby having night terrors. Then you get like the postpartum.
Oh my God.
And so it's like all of your depression is then coming to a head. And then, when his father did decide to come back, it was just like a revolving door of in and out of our lives, the infidelity, the cheating, the, breaking me down mentally and emotionally, being that emotional abuser. So it was like I went from one situation of physical abuse, now I'm in a situation of emotional abuse. And it wasn't until I went there to drop my son off, and he came to the door, like yelling from the door that he wasn't taking my son, that it wasn't his day. I could kind of tell he was intoxicated because he was saying like craziness. I'm like, obviously it's your day. I looked at the calendar, today is Friday. Like, I'm just like so confused. And my son, I looked at him and I was getting ready to explain, like, he must just have forgot or must have been busy. But before I could even say the words, my son was like, so he doesn't want me, Mommy? Oh. And that, looking at his eyes and hearing those words come out of his mouth, that is literally what did it for me.
Oh my God.
And I was able to like cold turkey cut the father off, go back anymore, and just be completely done and fully walk away. So I needed that experience to really take me away fully and be able to truly then heal, not just from the childhood trauma, but now the adult trauma,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know, but it made me a better mom. It made me look at my son and put my son first. And then it helped, you know, having my son as my pivotal moment,
Wow.
you know, it had me talking to God and being like, I'm ready to just to let it go. I just need you to take this from me, tell me what I'm supposed to do with all of this, and get me right, because I can't go on like this no more.
Right. Wow. Wow.
That's when I got to acceptance. And now I'm just
Okay.
like,
Okay.
we're
I'm
here
good.
now.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this is what we got to do something with it. I'm in my do stage now
Okay.
after
Good.
acceptance.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. That's all enough. I had to pause that for a second. Let me get me some water.
Mhm.
I might just have to stop. I have it done. Because I hate to pause it and then it don't go back to where it needs
Oh,
to
yeah,
go.
no problem. I was trying not to. So usually I don't like to look at the camera. I like to look at the person.
I know, me too.
But I was afraid to move because I didn't know if the mic thing would be on the audio too. So I was like afraid to. That's why I was like, yeah, I was like looking this way because I was like afraid to move that the speaker or whatever would, or the headphones. I don't know. But as long as it's not on that side, I guess it doesn't matter.
Move it too. I don't know what happened.
We just get to talking and sometimes you get a little dry.
All right. Wow. Okay. So I know you have a son, but what are you doing or have you done to prevent passing this trauma down? Or I guess it's not so much as a shielding from, but a making sure that he is aware of what trauma is, to know, oh, no, I don't think this is a place I need to be at now. Or how do you prepare your child for traumatic experiences or encounters?
Yeah, so I'm a very involved mom in TT/Tita. So
Okay.
all of my kids, and I say all my kids because that's how involved I am. Like they're with me all the time. And all of our kids, they are growing up together and constantly with each other. Because me and my siblings are very close in that sense, especially me and my sisters. So all of our kids really kind of grow up with each other more like siblings and cousins.
Awesome.
So I've learned to parent them in a way that's specific to them, their personality, and their needs. I know that I can't do the same thing with this one that I can do with the other one because
that's true.
They're different.
Yes.
So I've always kept that in mind as in how I handle them. I also have from the beginning of time, like always talked to them about or spoke to them about clear communication. We always have very clear communication, especially with my son being the oldest one. He's 8. So it's a little bit different when speaking to him versus maybe speaking to my 4-year-old nephew.
Okay.
But that clear communication, I don't necessarily divulge all of my story to him.
Of course.
Because
of course.
I feel like there's certain stages and ages where they can handle a certain piece of information, and then there's certain ages where they can handle a little bit more. And at the age of 8, the only thing that he needed to be concerned with really was the fact that I've overcome a lot of obstacles within my childhood that led me to having him, and then overcome more obstacles within the relationship with his father, because, you know, those are things that he knew at 3, that things were just different with me and his,
Something's not
yeah,
right.
he was like, he already knew, and he's very intuitive and very protective of me. So the fact that he would be trying to get in the middle of us, or having, or pushing his father away and clinging to me, like that kind of thing, I knew he already had felt something, some sort of separation or some sort of divide there. But what I always encourage him is to, number one, I try to be honest with him without painting anyone in a bad light.
Right.
So you never want
That's
to
important.
give people their opinion of someone.
That's very correct.
So I just tell him how I'm feeling in that moment. And, you know, what I'm working on to feel better or something like that. If he was like, you know, because this is more so when he was really little, just because I didn't have any control of my emotions.
Yeah.
He'd be like, Mommy, why are you crying? Mommy, why are you sad? Like, and I would just basically tell him that I am kind of grieving right now. I need to heal. Mommy's trying to get better so that she can be a strong mommy for you. And just articulating it in the way that he needs. And I have told him, you know, to some extent, some of the things that I've battled with or gone through, but not in such a plain way. When he is older, though, I think it's very important to have that conversation with him, because those are things that if he's ever in situations where or certain experiences with people that have faced that, like, he knows he has me to come to.
Right.
And so I've built that connection with him that you can come to me for anything and we're going to overcome that obstacle. You never have to do anything alone, because we're going to be able to push through it and overcome it together with God. He's also has strong faith in God. So he, you know, knows how to fight those battles. We fight our battles in prayer.
Okay. But now, do you think you would tell him that it was his granddad who did it?
I feel like
you would leave that part out.
I feel like I will allow God to, I will allow discernment from God to know what it is that he's supposed to hear and what it is that he's not supposed to hear.
Exactly, and I would probably leave that to the granddad to share it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the other thing I was gonna say. I feel like my dad, if that conversation ever came up, he would be the one to share that anyways. Right. I'm very aware that I share my story a lot and on various platforms. So I know when he's older, he's going to hear it.
Yes.
And he's going to have questions.
Yes.
But I would never have that conversation with him alone without my dad. I would want my dad to be a part of that conversation, to be able to, because he's going to know the version of my dad that he knows, and the version of my dad today, and the version of my dad for years to come. He will never know that version of my dad. So he'll never have to associate the two.
Right.
So I'm aware that he's at some point gonna hear it. You can't put things on social media and just think that they're never going to see it.
These days, everything's on social media now,
so
it's crazy.
It's definitely something I thought of, though.
Yeah. Okay. My next question. So do you consider yourself to be the breaker in your family? Because you said that you have other siblings. So are your other siblings speaking out? Are they working with youth? Are they doing?
I think we've all coped in our own various ways. Each have taken different paths for sure. Especially initially, I think now we're aligning more. But initially, you know, my brother was on one path, more so the path of the streets, more so the path of incarceration. And my sister was similar to me, as in she was going towards relationships and finding that safety and comfort in a man or a person. We actually both ended up getting pregnant our senior year of high school. What? So that's something that is ending. I'm like, that's broken. And it's kind of crazy because I was talking about it with my mom, and My grandma got pregnant in high school. My aunt got pregnant in high school. My mom got pregnant in high school. I got pregnant in high school. Then my little sister got pregnant in high school. And we were like, this cycle is broken.
Yeah.
This cycle is broken.
Yeah.
Because of the fact, the thing in common with all of those situations was everyone was in the midst of their trauma when it happened. No one had overcome that trauma and gotten to the healing point to be able to stop that from happening, or stop from looking for love and safety in a person rather than in God. So our kids are not going to have to know that type of trauma. They're not going to have to know, they're not going to have to try to find that in someone else, because they're already built in with knowing their value and knowing where they get that from, and that's from God, and that they have us as outlets to be able to speak about anything with. And so they're equipped with the skills and knowledge not to be codependent like we were. We were codependent, and that is the issue of like being sort of having that addictive personality to love and to a person. They will never have to do that, so they'll know where their help comes from, and where their love should be coming from. They'll know what true love is, to not be getting that confused. And they'll be better than us in that way, because we are healed and we're parenting them through healing. We were not parented through healing. We were parented through trauma, which is then why we continue trauma. That cycle ends because we're parenting through healing now.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's incredible. That's beautiful. Awesome. Okay. Well, my final question, and I know in a sense you answered, and it's, have you ever wanted to quit? So I know that there was one point in your trauma you wanted to quit, but now that you are moving forward in healing and helping to heal others, has there ever been a moment where you're like, you know what, I'm good now. I'm not gonna go forward in this anymore. These people are just not listening. They don't want to hear. Has there ever been a point where you wanted to quit?
No. No. The simple answer is no. It's because God didn't bring me through and give me restoration, and not only give me restoration, give me elevation.
Come on.
And then I go and turn around and just quit and just stop doing his work. That would be no, because then I would start seeing myself go into all other kinds of obstacles where he's trying to teach me something, and trying to put me through something to make a better version of me. And that can be all well and good, but sometimes those are obstacles you don't want to have to put yourself into. Exactly. So I'd rather be obedient.
Okay.
And get what God has for me while giving him glory. Yeah. That the glory that he deserves for pulling me out, because rather than try to go my own way and be like, I'm good, I'm gonna take a break from this. No, if God told me to do it, if God told me to be there, if God told me to talk about it, if he gave me the story to talk about it, then all I should be doing is using my breath to talk about it.
Okay. That's it.
That's it. I always say, do not remain bound. Like, once you know differently, you have to do differently. And so that's what I tell people. I'm like, allow God to restore you. Allow God to push you past the surface so that you can do the action steps to create that healing at the root. And I can only continue healing myself at the root if I do the will of the Father.
Amen. Amen. Did you have anything else you want to share? Or
no, I think that's all.
Okay, awesome. This was really good. I mean, trauma is, I'm a crisis and traumatic counselor. Okay. So trauma is something that I'm always drawn to. Anytime someone says something, or this situation is happening, I'm like, what's the root of it? Yes. I want to know the root.
That's what I say, the root. People always they hear a situation, they like to or they see how someone's acting and they just come up with their judgments. They come up with their opinions, or, oh, she's saying she got an attitude, like real quick to judge. But when you take the time to lower that and just be like trying to figure out the root of it, we would get so much farther with our children and the children that are acting out if we would just go to the root and make them feel seen and heard and talk about it.
Because nobody's asking them, what's going on for real? I know my daughter just said, and she doesn't have any kids, but my older son has 4 kids, and so she's that auntie. And so she said she stopped asking them how was their day, and she started asking, what was the high of your day today? What was your low today?
I love highs and lows.
And so she said she even started asking, even her coworkers, instead of just saying, how you doing today? Or how was your day today? Because it gets people to talking. Because when you just say, well, how was your day today? That was fine. And then we just go about our way, like that's an answer. But most times that's not the answer. There's something else going on, so we just have to be mindful of other people and what's really going on. And people are always caught off guard when I ask people like, how you doing today? It's just something that we're doing, like, oh, how you doing today? But we keep walking and not listen and wait for the answer. But I'm one of those people who will wait for the answer. Like, no, how are you today? And they'd be like, oh, okay.
You actually care. You see me.
Exactly. So I think that's
people
important.
like you should lead trainings for those that are, dealing with kids. I always say for like teachers, whenever I just filled out like a syllabus because my son just went to school, started school yesterday or today. Yeah, today was his first day. And so they give the thing where they're like, tell me about your child. And I literally write on there, if he's having a bad day, if he's frustrated, do not punish him. Do not take it as disrespect. Take the time to just be patient with him and talk to him about it, because he is someone who is a perfectionist who's in it when he feels like he's struggling to achieve the success or achieve it, doing it correctly, he gets frustrated. So please don't take his emotions as disrespect. Take him aside, talk him through it, remind him to be patient, encourage him through it. And that's what I wrote on that paper, because I'm like, the way y'all handle children, the way you handle my child is important to me, and the way you handle other people's children is important to me. I think it's a call out when you work with kids, when you work with people, that you really need to stop with the quick judgments, stop with the quick frustrations, and take the time to understand at the root. So someone who's in crisis, trauma, crisis counseling, like that'd be a good person to go to if you have questions about how to deal with someone when they're going through things. Because no one asked me either, and they probably just assumed I was promiscuous. I heard all kinds of little comments when I was pregnant. And little did you know, I this is like the first person I've ever even been with, but it's what led me to that. Do you want to take the time to learn that, or you just want to see what the after is?
Right. Well, I'm glad I didn't stop this recording, because I needed to hear that.
Okay.
About the fact that you did that for your son, you advocated for him at that moment.
Absolutely. Because I know him, I know my baby, and I'm like,
parents should do that. I hope other parents do that.
Yes, I hope so.
Wow. Well, all righty. I think we've touched on everything. I think that was it, y'all. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you asking me to be here.
I've seen you around. I've seen your Facebook, and just heard your name, and I'm like, somebody need to.
I appreciate that. Like you being obedient to God and just having that discernment and being like, I want to talk to her, because I'm just someone, I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I'm just like, all right, blindly, like, accepting. And, you probably didn't even know me. And so that's cool.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening. with me and Bri today on Nickel, where she is going to continue to prevail, I'm sure. She is continuing to help other people to overcome and to triumph in or through their traumas. Amen. So you guys have a great day. Don't just have a great day, but make it a great one.
Absolutely.